That's Nigeria with Tolulokpe Ogunjobi. Now, Nigeria's crude oil market is a cornerstone of the nation's economy, contributing significantly to the government's revenue and foreign exchange earnings. The downstream sector, which encompasses the refining, distribution, and retailing of the petroleum products, faces a number of challenges that threatens its efficiency, particularly issues around refining capacity. Experts say the path forward requires a concerted effort from both the government and the private sector to foster a resilient and efficient downstream industry that can withstand the test of time. I introduced him earlier. He's a partner and senior economist at SPM Professionals, Mr. Paul Alaje. He's live in the studio, not from Abuja today. It's good to see you in Lagos. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Anyway, you're always in Lagos.
Thank you so much for having me.
Same here, same here. Well, I think we should start this way. We thought that when we had heard about the Dangote refinery coming on stream, that was the solution to the challenges in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. But since deregulation, or since we instituted deregulation, we seem to be having a series of challenges. What is your understanding of the positives of the PIA, even at this time?
Well, the PIA and deregulation, the PIA came such that we can have a very easy way into deregulation.
Yes.
Because before PIA, what people have cited as the major bottleneck was that there is no structure, there is no law, there is nothing that binds the country for implementing such rules. But now that the PIA has been passed, and in fact, it's no longer a bill, it's a law, and why is it still very difficult? I'll tell you. Economics is interconnected. Economics is not just about what we feel about a sector or one subsector. We have to look at it holistically. Now we need to look at Nigeria's debt. We need to look at the promises we have made. We understand that with the PIA and the crude oil sector, Nigeria had already agreed with some international organization to lift our crude, in exchange of payments that will pay them with crude in the future.
Yes.
How long is the rope of payment? Well, it's another conversation because we have conflicting reports as a research organization regarding what that is. Two, we have also now seen against the backdrop of the PIA bill, we believe that private refineries can now come mainstream because one of the major policies the current administration introduced was allowing voice of demand and supply to play in the downstream sector, especially the retail, where people actually buy their PMS.
Yes.
Because already this has been deregulated and so on and so forth. But when you now look at it, this seems to have human factor and also national factor. We made promise to a refinery, a private refinery. So many persons have said this is the largest refinery in Africa. Some have said the largest refinery in the world. But a beautiful car without engine is as good as what you park in a museum. A beautiful car without an engine. In fact, if the engine is obsolete, it's the same.
Yeah.
We promised Dangote a minimum of 650,000 barrels of crude on daily basis. Till now, we've not been able to fulfill it. There are reasons. One, because we cannot meet up. Two, because it's no longer visible, because we have promised the international community or international oil company that we have to pay them some of the money that we have taken, and we are still looking to find whether the money is impacting us as a nation or not. Thirdly, we have also heard, and we have it in report, that even to sell diesel, Dangote has not been licensed because, according to the agency of government, perhaps the quality of diesel has a high level of sulfur. And I'm wondering, when you look at Nigeria oil and gas, in fact, Nigeria crude is good. We call it sweet crude because of low content of sulfur. Now, and that is what we studied in economics. Because as an oil and gas person, there is oil and gas economics. And what is taught in all schools in Nigeria and abroad is that Nigeria is one of those few countries that is blessed with sweet crude. So is it the one that was imported by Dangote that has high sulfur content? Because Dangote has also demonstrated on screens of TV that they made the necessary requirement. Could it now be that politics is playing out somewhere? Could it be that some interest? Because you see, if we don't allow supply side, I've spoken in some places, and I've heard some economists that said, do we really need a local refinery? And I said, I remember I sat on this chair and I had this conversation with you, Mr. Tolu. Anyone that says that does not love Nigeria. whether as an economist or as an engineer, especially economists, because they know the truth somewhere in their mind. Our real challenge starts first with supply.
Yes.
We need to import. So what are we doing? The agency of government is still licensing people to import. So we have supply challenge. Secondly, we now have exchange rate challenge. On one hand, central bank is doing everything possible to combat inflation. But the same central bank will devalue the naira. They said there is a lot of pressure because we don't have enough to defend the naira. You see what is happening. And I'm not necessarily referring to this dispensation of central bank. I'm talking broadly as a researcher. So what do you expect? We have two types of inflation. We have monetary and non-monetary. When you have seasonal, like the last guest talked about, those ones are not the core inflation. We call them non-monetary inflation. In fact, they can easily be solved. And you don't use monetary approach to solve non-monetary inflation. Like price of rice going up, there is a flood in Lokoja. You now, because of that, raise your NPR. Or because of insecurity. To get food, you now have food inflation, which is now in headline inflation. The way we respond is to just raise rate. Our people will suffer if we do that. It is when your inflation is monetary inflation. And there are two kinds, the way there are two types. So, on this argument, if we don't ensure we have supply, either for crude or diesel, I'm not even talking about rates now, it will further induce inflation. Because this will have implication on exchange rate. As we import, the value of naira will get distorted. And when the currency gets distorted, then you have monetary concern. So you are going to now have the real inflation, what we call in economics real inflation. This is monetary inflation. So here is it. The entire economy revolves around oil and gas sector.
That's true.
The entire economy, from revenue to government to the smallest barbing salon vulcanizer by the road. We all depend on this product. And the nature was so kind to us. It gave us in reasonable quantity. Whether this reasonable quantity is abundant or not, whether we will continue to look the other way for vandals to vandalize our pipeline, which is one of the key challenges, or to steal our crude, which is another key challenge, or we continue to allow non-healthy competition in the market, or we say that, well, whether we are able to supply or not, there is nothing we can do about it. And that is why I wonder, with PIA, we should have unbundled the NNPC. We should have. We cannot allow the regulator to also be regulated. You cannot regulate yourself. NNPC is one of the key importance.
There's been an argument in regards to that. Now, that argument around being a regulator and being an operator, right, has been, we've talked about it for some time. And the PIA gives the NNPCL the capacity or the authority to be the supplier of last resort, which is what they claim to be doing when they have to supply the market, when there is no supply or when we have issues, challenges with supply. So they're trying to,
we cannot permanently be on life support. It is called supply of last resort. The way central bank is a lender of last resort, not the first lender. When are we going to now stop relying on last resort? The solution, except we don't love this nation. If we do, we must source supply internally. Internally. We can't be giving licenses to people to bring in fresh crude, and we say we want dollar to improve. Do we expect the Central Bank of Nigeria to print dollars? That should not be it. If government truly have interest in what is happening in crude, then government should ensure 1, 2, or 3 of the refineries will ensure they become functional. 2, the private refinery where we need to provide support, we provide such support to ensure that we have output. And the reason for output is not for me, not just because we want the output to be there, but because a lot of things around this. 1, it creates jobs for people. 2, it's revenue to the government in terms of taxes. 3, it also helps reduce, the cost that we would have bought. Do you know how long it takes to clear a vessel of crude at the port? Sometimes when you see scarcity, and NNPC say, we have sufficient, truly they have, but it's at the port. I cannot. There's supply chain challenges. I cannot go to the port to buy. I have to wait till it gets here. So if it does not get to me, or it does not get to the depot, and depot now move it by road through trucks, which is wrong anyways, because we should rely on pipelines.
I totally agree.
So if if we continue to rely on NNPC, then we have a big challenge. How soon can we allow private sector or other agencies ensure there is enough distribution or, supply chain is effective? Because if it is not, it's a matter of time. I give you to December, exchange rate will change. And it is not your fault, it's not my fault. In fact, some persons in government will wonder what is happening. But this is what is happening. It is more dangerous to have monetary inflation than to have more non-monetary inflation. In fact, non-monetary inflation can be controlled. Look at peso, the currency spend in Argentina, or you look at the Zimbabwe dollar. Their challenge is monetary inflation. They also have element of non-monetary, but the signaling is coming from monetary inflation. For Nigeria, we have more non-monetary inflation, about 20 to 35% of monetary inflation. So our challenge is that we are using monetary approach to solve non-monetary inflation. And people are wondering, as we have been raising MPR, why is it still increasing? I just laugh anytime I see the MPR has gone up. Sometimes I put my hands on my head. This is not the approach. The approach is already in that data shared by the National Bureau of Statistics, that our challenge is non-monetary in nature. So we should use non-monetary strategy and you can bring that inflation first to about 25%, to 18%, to 17%, back to single digit. And you can do this in 1 year. But if we continue to use monetary approach, it will crowd out investment, it will crowd out employment, and it may lead us to a stagnant economy. Economy where you don't grow more than 3%. Look at IMF. He said we're going to grow 3.7, brought it down to 3.1. Last year, they said we're going to go 3 point something. At the end of the year, we grew 2.98. Why? Because monetary approach to solve non-monetary problems. Economics is not just be talking offhand or off-head or just read textbooks. It is, you need to go and look at your econometrics numbers. That's why researchers are different from one another. It's not just to read newspaper or read one textbook or read online. You need to look at the numbers. At the end of the day, you can make clear projection. I sat on this table with you and I said Naira will be 1.5. You were wondering, how did you? Then it was 700. I said, don't trust me. Trust the econometrics number. This is what he's telling us. It is number. We can't do anything about it. Today is slightly above that. Can we bring it down? Yes, we can. But one of the ways to bring it down is, how do we have local, whether it is Dangote,
exactly,
or
because
whatever name,
it's a two-way
matter
out of this quagmire. Now,
yes.
It's two-way. It's either we import or we encourage local refining.
Yes, but we have to now choose. Which one is less hurtful? Which one is less hurtful? If it is local refinery, the danger here is that we have to deal with monopoly if it is local. But can we make Port Harcourt refinery work? Recall again that you and I were here and we're looking at Dangote, and people were saying, I said, you don't need to shout for it too much because you have a danger of monopoly. The way to cross monopoly is to empower 2 or 3 of your refinery. Even if we cannot manage it as a nation, can we give it to private sector so that we have some level of competition? Look at cement. It is not one operator. Look at sugar. There are very few. We call them oligopolists. Very few of them. But if you want to honestly raise price, we have a government that can call few people and say the price is not transparent enough. We believe you are putting too much pressure on the population, and this can cause a non-monetary inflation on the people. So government can take that position. But for us to sit on the fence is more dangerous, because if you continue to issue new licenses to people to import, bear in mind that someday we will all come back to say that, oh, Naira is now bad. Oh, exchange rate is now 2,000. Exchange rate is 3,000. But our decisions, either decision or indecision, is actually contributing to it. So do we want to have interest in this? Or do we say that we are also taking Port Harcourt refinery the way it is to the exchange and say, let private sector take over, let's put it in the market, so that in a way there is public-private partnership. Government has some interest, private sector also has some interest. And what is my goal as a private sector person? Is profit.
Yeah.
Your goal is profit. So if you are in private sector, your goal is to make profit. So irrespective of who the person is, output, production is the key goal for us as a nation. And I believe that this can reduce our exchange rate challenges, this can reduce our import bill, this can increase our marginal propensity to consume as against marginal propensity to import, because you need to compare the two. As I speak to you, marginal propensity to import is higher than marginal propensity to consume. And what that means is a signaling. It tells us that what is even the composition of your personal, we call it consumer expenditure on imported goods. What is the component? If it's higher than what you consume in local product, then you have a lot of challenge. So, to my mind, my argument will be that government need to intervene at this time. Because whatever happens, people will say, oh, the government has devalued the game. Yeah. And that will be the argument. And this has price implication. If it has price implication, it has political implication. If it has political implication, then it has power implication. Because these three P's, they work together. So if the price is bad, then it will have political implication. If it causes political implication, it may cause power implication. That is why government, we need to look at it. What is the best in this circumstance? We have promised. Unfortunately, it's not this president that promised. Yeah. But now, there is no excuse. Because the president is now a new leader. He's the father of the nation. He has to inherit both the good and the bad of the nation. So there is no excuse. How do we solve the problem? And to my mind, one of the ways is we have a law that is lost already to theft. How do we stop it?
Let's touch on that as we almost wrap up this conversation. Crude oil theft is something that is eating deep into the fabric of this economy. We can't even meet OPEC quota, not to talk of supplying local refineries, modular refineries, and what we have for our contractual agreements. But many would say crude is not being, or the pipelines are not being ruptured by just anybody. It looks like an international crime. How can we really look into it? Because we saw the military forces, the DL, everybody moved to the south area to actually take charge. All of the regions to take up, because the president gave them marching order. What do you really think is the way out of
Well,
this?
for me, that's the first thing.
That's the first thing, right?
That's the first thing.
Sincerity of purpose.
Yes. You cannot. So the purpose is now clear.
Yes.
The military,
president has given them standing order.
Local vigilante, everybody should work together. Can we get output up to 2 million barrels? We have capacity to.
We can.
With this, if we give 650, we have promised Dangote before now to Dangote, then it makes sense.
Yeah. You still have like 1.4.
We have 1.4 to go.
Yeah.
Over 1.4. But do you know that there are now new fields that have not been explored? A lot of them. True. About 4 of them, actually.
True.
The new field, one should have even been bettered, but as I talk to you, it's no mention of it. If you have some new fields and you look for the one that has proximity to Lagos, where Dangote refinery is, can we say one of them could be dedicated? Because it's not free. It's also part of Nigerian shares. It's also part of Nigerian revenue or Nigerian income. So that business. And that is why I would want us to look at it as commercial people. If people in government do not have sufficient, say, business capacity to look at it, we have a lot of people in Nigeria. We have bank CEOs, we have different organizations that has this capacity to sit on that board to represent government in terms of negotiation and look at the several issues that we have and make useful recommendations for the greatness of our country and solving our numerous challenges. Remember, inflation, especially monetary inflation, is attached to it. Exchange rate, which of course, once it gets worse, it says signal to monetary inflation, is also attached to it. These are 2 key things which I think we should consider. And I also want to say that as MPC is meeting, you should consider what kind of inflation, not what type. What type? You have demand pull, supply push. No, cost push, I beg your pardon. Cost push and demand pull. Those are the kinds. But at advanced level in economics, we look beyond the type. We look at the kind. Is this monetary inflation or non-monetary inflation? Why? So that we can now make informed decision whether we should still live in increasing rates or for the first time in a short while, we should sit on the fence to reveal the impact of what we have done. But another thing that may force central bank and monetary policy committee to take decision is when we still continue to import endlessly. The truth is that it will put pressure on our reserve, it will put pressure on inflation, it will put pressure on exchange rates.
Finally, we've had some disruptions, in recent times, and the last one was, according to the NPCL, was the thunderstorm that affected moving or offloading the mother vessel to the daughter vessel, and also from the depots to move into the tankers. Weather issues, what they ascribed to, but digging deep also, we saw that there were some logistics challenge, like you also identified. How do you see players in that downstream space addressing some of these challenges, or do we just need to address this issue head on before we can get off this scarcity today, some weeks we are back, and a bit of scarcity again?
Solution. Let local refinery work. If they are working, you have no business with the vessels. There is nothing Thunder will strike. If Thunder want to strike, we strike the ground. We will all be fine. 2, connect the pipelines to key regions.
Then there must be security.
Security is the third one. If you put security and there are no pipeline, this pipeline puts security. Don't do it alone with the Nigerian military forces or police. I trust the police. I believe in the Nigerian military. But they are humans too.
Yes, they are.
Look for citizens that has major interest, major stake, to partner with the police. Until you move close to the police, you will not know that they are very good police. Even though they are bad police, the way they are bad doctors, they are good doctors. Everywhere. So, but when you move close, you see that they also know that if we allow this to happen, people will suffer. And we now also need to see from the body language of leaders, from president to governors to local government chairmen to legislatures, that, listen, we have no other country. We need to protect. This is one symbol, one sector that unifies all of us. Whether you like it or not, 1 week we must consume something that has to do with petrochemical, either in our creams or in our leather bags, or we consume it as fuel in our car, even if you don't own the car. If it is
Uber or
Uber, or what do we use in Lagos?
Energy.
It's energy.
Yes.
Even to have these lights that we have is powered by energy.
Yeah.
We now see that even on daily basis, we need it. But we need to now say this to our consciousness, because some of our challenges are also psychological, so that people can renew their mind and believe that Nigeria can work. No matter who wants to run Nigeria, if people believe that it is over, no matter the effort, it will not work. That is why everybody, starting from, of course, I've seen the work media have been doing, lately, about getting people to believe in Nigeria. We need to believe in this country. But that does not mean we will exonerate those who are not doing well for us. Nigeria, especially young people, we speak against it because we still have a long way to go, and we believe this country can work.
I must thank you so much. Very interesting conversation as usual with you, Mr. Paul Alaji, as the partner and senior economist with SPM Professionals. He joined us to talk more about activities in Nigeria's downstream sector. Of course, an economist had to throw some submissions in regards to the ongoing MPC meeting in Abuja. Thank you so much. It's really good to have you.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Well, I think it's time to talk markets. Mr. Dele Sanusi is already standing by to join me. He's an equities trader at Downstream Investment.